Am I my brother's keeper? Yes, I am. Am I my brother's keeper? Yes, I am. Am I my brother's keeper? Yes, I am.
Nino Brown Boxing, I'm back in the building. Shout out to the LDBC. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. So I know I've been gone for a while, but I'm back. Had some things to take care of. But today I wanted to talk about my boy Jarrett Hurd and the whole Jermell Charlo situation. Now I know it's been a lot of backlash, in the whole YouTube boxing community regarding Jarrett Hurd and his shoulder surgery and all of the talking that he was doing prior to the surgery. People, they're having their issues with him saying that he wants to face a right-handed fighter before he faces Jermell Charlo. And I get it. I understand the frustration. My only issue is, well, first thing first, I don't have an issue with people saying that, Jarrett Hurd talk all this shit. Okay, now it's time for him to face Jermell Charlo next. I get it. The only problem I have when it comes to criticism of Jarrett Hurd is the comparison to Keith Thurman. That's the thing, honestly, y'all, that's the thing that really bothers me the most, because I was once a huge Keith Thurman fan. And the way the timeline goes with Keith Thurman, it was consecutive back-to-back injuries, putting fights on hold, postponements, pushing it back. Like, Keith Thurman even got to the point when he is basically irrelevant compared to the level of star power he had about over 2 years ago. He's irrelevant now, and he's still pushing stuff back. So the comparison to Jarrett Hurd and Keith Thurman, it's premature to me. Now, I also decided to look at it from multiple perspectives. If I'm a Jermell Charlo diehard fan, and don't get me wrong, Jermell Charlo is one of my favorite fighters. If y'all don't know, Errol Spence Jr. is my favorite fighter. I've said it in plenty of videos. I'm going to say it again. So Jermell Charlo, Errol Spence, Jarrett Hurd. I may be missing some people, but I like all of those guys. But Errol Spence happens to be my favorite. With that being said, I have some bias when it comes to Jarrett Hurd. I mean, I'm from DC. He's from Accokeek, Maryland. And, it's all local to me. It's all local. It's the DMV area. So I got to support my hometown guy. Like, I don't expect, I expect, Texas guys to support their Texas guys as well. I get it. But I also want to be realistic to myself. I'm not going to get on here lying to myself and say, okay, Jarrett Hurd comes back from the shoulder surgery. He has his tune-up fight. That's to be expected. It is what it is. It's boxing. Before I go down that road, the thing I don't understand is, we all know boxing is the hurt business. And if boxing is the hurt business, why do people get so surprised when a fighter gets hurt? That's the part that I don't get. And another thing is, everyone has been doubting Jarrett Hurd for the longest. Not as, all the way back to the Tony Harrison fight. Of course, it wasn't as lopsided as the Austin Trout and Erislandy Lara. But even in the Tony Harrison fight, I saw people talking about me, Hurd don't got no defense, this and that. Harrison gonna box circles around him. Then you hear it again with Austin Trout. Then you heard it again with Lara. Now, at this current point in the 154-pound division, not everyone, but a lot of people believe that Jermell Charlo is the best super welterweight, junior middleweight, whatever you want to call it. Now, the way I look at it is, Jarrett Hurd said he wants that fight. Now, obviously, he doesn't want that fight next. Does it suck? Absolutely. But he said he still wants it. He said he wants to be, he wants to unify again. and take that WBC belt from Jermell Charlo. I'm all for it. But my thing is, let's say if he has any lingering, nagging injuries, if Jermell Charlo is the best, if the consensus is that Jermell Charlo beats Jarrett Hurd, I don't understand why would people expect any less of Jarrett Hurd when it comes to him wanting to be in the best health possible. If he's already at a disadvantage when it comes to his skill set, according to a lot of people. He's already at a disadvantage when it comes to his defense. So, why put yourself at a further disadvantage with a shoulder injury? Now, I'm not going to say that this man is lying. Like when Keith Thurman got injured the first time, the whole car accident situation, I was on here. I didn't have a channel then, but I was on here defending Keith Thurman. I was saying, Keith Thurman, a grown-ass man, he doesn't have to prove anything to anyone. If he's been in this car accident, and if his word isn't good enough, fuck what anybody else think. That was my stance on it the first time. I thought Thurman was going to do his regular thing. I had reasonable expectations for Keith Thurman, for him to recover from his injury, have his training camp, and fight Sean Porter. Now, we all know that story. Until Jarrett Hurd gets to the point where he starts behaving like Keith Thurman. And what I mean by that is Jarrett Hurd gets to a point and he starts pushing this fight with Jermell Charlo back. He starts making all of these excuses. He starts disappearing off social media. He goes an extended amount of time. Me personally, my timeline for Jarrett Hurd is one tune-up fight. So your tune-up fight needs to be an orthodox fighter. You say you've been fighting southpaws. You want to fight an orthodox fighter. Cool. Now, another thing people aren't taking into consideration is the names that are floating around for his tune-up fight. I'm hearing he wants to fight J-Rock. Granted, I don't view J-Rock as a tune-up. He's not a Jermell Charlo, but I feel like that's a respectable opponent. Look at it like this. And of course, the whole J-Rock fight is hypothetical, of course. But look at it like this. If he was to fight J-Rock, Arislandi Lara, Austin Trout, and Tony Harrison, you have 4 fighters. Stylistically, Tony Harrison is a tough fight for him. Austin Trout was a tough fight for him. He stopped Austin Trout. Lara, the best 154-pounder of the last 3, 4, maybe even 5 years. He beat Lara. And if he's to go to fight J-Rock, J-Rock isn't on, in my opinion, Austin Trout level. He definitely not on. He definitely isn't on Arislandi Lara's level. I give him a step above Tony Harrison at this point in his career. But that's a good resume. That's a good resume. And even though we're not getting exactly what we want when it comes to the Jermell Charlo fight right now, he's giving us good fights. And I don't see anything wrong with that. Now, if he fights J-Rock and then decides that he wants to fight I don't know, I can't even think of it. Put it like this: if he decides he wants to fight anyone except for Jermell Charlo or Jaime Munguia, he ducking. As simple as that. I don't think that's going to happen. And I feel like saying that he's ducking at this point in time is definitely premature. And that's just my overall take on it. I like Jarrett Hurd. I like the Charlos. When it comes to the whole Charlo thing, I believe Charlo's the goods. I know he's a big guy for the division as well. I know he could potentially move up to middleweight, make noise as well. I get it. I understand he's a better technical fighter than Jarrett Hurd. I believe that. The only question mark I have for Charlo is his punching power. And some people may be like, oh, you crazy. And it's like, me being a Jarrett Hurd fan, biased because he's a hometown guy, I could point out his flaws. It's obvious. But it seems like a lot of people aren't speaking on the flaws that Charlo has. Charlo's resume isn't as strong. And I'm not on some comparison where the fight shouldn't happen because of the resume. No, not at all. I'm saying just based off of the caliber opponent that you're judging Hurd against for his style versus the caliber opponent that Jermell Charlo went against for his style. Now we got to think about it. Jermell just fought an Austin Trout. Basically, not trying to be disrespectful, but in this case it was Jarrett Hurd leftovers. And it was definitely Hurd's leftovers because Hurd is the one that stopped Austin Trout for the first time. And then prior to that, you have Erickson Lubin. Yes. I know the WBC ordered that fight, and Jermell Charlo was trying to say, how did this young kid get this opportunity? I get it. And I like Erickson Lubin. I want him to make a good comeback. But that's who we fought. That's who's on his resume. So, you know, it is what it is. And prior to that was Charles Hadley. You can't, I mean, just based off a resume and the level of competition, trying to compare that to Jarrett Hurd, I look at it as unfair. But getting back to the whole power portion is, Austin Trout's never been stopped. And he's been in there with the top guys. Some people forget, like, you know, this is the same Austin Trout that gave Canelo a tough fight. You know, the same Austin Trout that beat a much younger Miguel Cotto. And Austin Trout it's not like he's like Canelo and he has a size advantage or anything like that. He beat Cotto with skill and boxing ability. Then he fought Charles Hadley. He stopped Charles Hadley. I mean, Charles Hadley, from what I know, he was the man in the amateurs, but pro-wise, man, he ain't shit. He talked a lot of shit. He built up the fight. The hype was great. And yeah, and then prior to that, he fought John Jackson, a fight that he was losing. And it's just, the whole thing about this frustrating is, call it for what it is. You can point out the fact that Hurd was losing against Lara. He was losing in the fight against Harrison. He was losing against Trout. But nobody ever talks about the fact that Jermell Charlo was losing against John Jackson. Did he stop him? Yeah, hell yeah, he stopped him. But last I checked, Hurd stopped Harrison. Hurd stopped Trout. Hurd didn't stop Lara, but he knocked him down and he got a close victory. So it's like, my thing about it is, man, if you're gonna point out the flaws in one fighter, just do the same for the other. And it's just like, that's just my whole issue with it. I like the guys. I want the best for them. Unfortunately, you know, they couldn't fight a Canelo at 154. You know, we had to deal with all that bullshit. My preference would be for any of the Charlos or Jarrett Hurd to fight Canelo before they fight one another. But that's not the case. So we just gotta do what we have. But yeah, I just wanted to drop that video. It's 4th of July, so I don't really celebrate that. But if you are, you know, look at it like cook out, have a good time with your family, enjoy some good food. But this is Nino Brown Boxing. Shout out to the LDBC. Don't forget to hit that like button, and I'm out.